Hey guys, welcome back to Sketch Today. I'm Spencer, where every day I give you something new and useful about visual communication. I'm an industrial designer and I don't sketch a lot of people, but I've had a lot of questions about how to sketch people, humans, all that good stuff. So what I'd like to do is just show you how I do it and why I sketch people and when. And I'll take you through my workflow. I'll be using pencils and just regular marker paper today. I'm not going to be doing any marker. And just want to kind of show you and walk through my process of sketching a human or a human head. So just to get started, it's important to understand proportion and how the body works. So if you look at a normal person, the unit of measurement is the head, if you're going to draw the entire body. The chest is typically about 2 heads wide, so if I were to take my head and go, 1, 2, I'd be about two heads wide to roughly my shoulders here. I like to think of the body in terms of primitives. So if I look at my arm here, it's kind of conical in shape, a little bit wider toward the joint of my elbow. And same thing with my upper arm here, where my bicep is, kind of a barrel shape. So if I think of it in terms of primitives, it's a lot easier for me to sketch. There's plenty of great YouTube videos if you really want to sketch people with exquisitely precise anatomy. The reason I sketch people is, one, to set the context of a product, because that's what I do. I'm a product designer, industrial designer. And two, to show scale. So if you sketch something on a person, on a hand, on a wrist, on a head, for example, you immediately have a sense of how big that thing is. So let's go ahead and sketch the body. So I'm going to start with kind of an egg shape here, and I'll just be doing a profile sketch to start. So once I have this, I can start to end a center line. Let's get a center line in. I'm using a pencil. You can see I'm really flat with this pencil. I'm going to sketch 2 lines down the side, not quite at the extreme tangency of this oval or egg shape, but rather a little bit tucked in. And I'm going to sketch 2 lines slightly at an angle. And I'm sketching a human male, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.5, 8 heads tall. And I've got a rough line here. And I'm going to split that into 2. Okay, so roughly 2 here. For the width of the chest, I'm just going to do 2 lines, and I'm looking at the width of this head that I drew here, and that's kind of where I get my distance. So just on the outside, okay, I'm starting to sketch kind of the shoulders, and now I can jump into the arms. Okay, now your arms don't sit perfectly straight down your body, they kind of kick out to the side a little bit, and so that's what I'm going to do here, is have these kick out. And you'll notice that as I'm drawing these arms, that it's almost like the forearm. So if you look at my forearm, it's almost like it goes wider and kind of comes around where my elbow is, like a little clam or a little mouth. So that's kind of how I think of the joint anyways. So as you have a joint, you've got your deltoids here, biceps, and forearm. And we get to kind of our waist, right about there. And right in this halfway point that I sketched, that's where I'm going to place the groin. And you'll notice I kind of have this V shape right in here. And then out of that, I've got the legs. So the male does not have as wide a hip as a female, but there's also kind of a counter force, if you will, to the way you draw the leg. So as I'm drawing this leg and being kind of sketchy, there's almost a directionality. So you've got this curve here and another curve, like so. And where your shin is, you've got that curve, and there's kind of an energy to things, okay? So, and that's the best job I'm going to do of explaining it. So again, if you want a precise and anatomically detailed overview, there's plenty of videos to look at that. But this is all about why and how I sketch humans as a product designer. So for the hand, okay, typically just, oh, wrong direction. Typically just do something like this, little thumb action there. And your hand is going to end up roughly about halfway down the thigh here. Okay, fingers, thumb, just like so. And just by mirroring what I have on the other side, I'm then able to kind of sketch in the rest of the person. So like I said, this is really just about setting up as a prop or stage for sketching a product. And so I'm not, sorry, I thought my son was over there. I'm not too concerned about getting all the detail, but rather proportion. So now I can extend this over to the side. And for the head, you're going to end up with something like this. Okay. And the chest, something like this. Here's my pelvis. Okay, so you have this counterbalance of forces. So if this arrow is going this way, pelvis is going a little bit back, that means that my legs are going to come a little forward and my calves and feet are going to oppose that force, okay? So you can kind of think of it that way if you're sketching out a person. And let's get our delt in here. And down to where we would have our hand. Okay, so again, just a rough silhouette or outline for sketching someone. Now, I just got back from CES. You may have heard of it. Oh, before I move on, so that's translating the front view to a side view. I just got back from CES, and one of the big things was VR. There were also tons of drones. It was a really cool show. Lots of stuff to see. So what if I wanted to sketch, you know, a human sitting in a chair, perhaps enjoying some virtual reality game or simulation. So I have this as a reference. I'm going to put this to my side here. And so I'm actually going to start with just a simple line drawing, okay, of something like this. And this is going to be the stage for my VR chair. And so now I can start to just sketch in some shapes, and these are elliptical kind of forms that are going to represent the components. Okay, I probably need some sort of armrest here, so I'll sketch that in. Jump over to the other side, sketch that in as well. Okay, so I've got some lines representing shoulder, okay, pelvis, all that good stuff right here. Pretty simple. So now, I guess I need some kind of headrest and also the head, right? So proportionally, remember, 2 heads wide on the chest. So I know, and I want my head to be a little bit more forward. Okay, so something like this for my head. And let's have my arm here and hand. And just to simplify the fingers, I've got just a little shape like that, okay, right on my armrest. And I'll use that shape to describe my arms, or sorry, my fingers, as I'm drawing this all in. So now that I've kind of got my framework, I can start to add some details. So this is similar to a method that I've probably gone over before, which is form, divide, beautify. So, which basically means work light till you get it right, or set up your drawing and then add the detail. And that way it's a lot less stressful of a workflow. So I've got fingers roughed out, this cool chair thing. So now I can start to kind of play around and figure out a design for this chair, for example. So there's the chair, and I'm not really worried too much about what this person's wearing, because the actual product, besides the chair itself, is going to be the VR headset. And by VR, I mean virtual reality. So if you're not in the loop, I'm sorry, but that's what I'm sketching. So, okay, got a little carried away there on the base for this chair. But you can see now I can sketch the product in. And let's just add a little tick mark here. So if I have a line for the leg that's kind of puffed out like that, I like to have the opposite line for the shin. So kind of a reverse there. And just for the foot, I'm gonna keep this really simple, okay? And maybe this is getting a little bit sci-fi, but that's okay. We're just having fun. So just keep that really simple and really clean. All right, so now let's look at the head. So the head is gonna have kind of an egg shape. I do have my nose that's right about here, and lips. So if I were drawing a headset, right, the front of that's going to need to be curved, and then I could actually come out and do all my cool display stuff over that, which, very well may cover parts of the nose, so I can cut that out. And, you've got ears here. So as this headset comes up, I got to consider, for example, where the ears are, because otherwise it wouldn't be very comfortable. And maybe a top where this wraps over the head. So let's zoom in so you can see this a little better and kind of what I'm doing with the pencil. But again, it's all about working light till you get it right. So I've got head and maybe a little bit of a hairline. When I sketch people in a sketch, they're usually hairless people. And the reason for that is not because I don't want to or can't draw here. It's just the more detail you add to a person in a sketch, the more scrutiny you get for that. And the reason is, we see people every day. So one, everyone's familiar with what a normal person looks like. So it's a lot harder to kind of work with any mistakes or flaws that you might have in your drawing than it would be with something that people aren't familiar with. So that presents a challenge. The other challenge is just proportion. It's really hard to get proportion down. The people, because we see them all the time, including ourselves, can almost become a distraction if the product is kind of the main part of your sketch. So you'll want to kind of consider that as you do your drawing. So even for things like clothing, here I'm just kind of roughing this in, right, where you've got, the pecs meeting these sleeves. Typically I just throw in some lines that kind of extend out like that, and that's going to cover me for my wrinkles. And then on the main shirt, just a few other lines like that. Now, you don't want your people to be super buff, so I try to be as careful as possible not to make everyone that I draw super buff. And that just means, not over-exaggerating the musculature of the figure that you're drawing. So even the fingers, they're not really a main part of this sketch, so I wouldn't put too much emphasis there, for example. So there I have the shirt, and now I can jump into the legs and just add, a couple of lines, some shading, for example, down the side. And if this person is wearing jeans, I can, sketch that in as well. And you could go as far as doing the shoes if you wanted to, but keep that simple if you can, because that's not really the main focus of the sketch. And what I want to do is direct, the eye to this part of the sketch, right? So another way we can do that is when you're working with pencil, you can apply more line weight to certain areas. So here on the helmet, or the headgear portion, I can start to add some more line weight and detail to this, and this is going to help this portion of my sketch just pop a little bit more. Okay, so that's really one of the main advantages of working this way, light till you get it right. And I'll just hint at the air just a little bit there. Get the shading in on this upper lip and just below the lower lip. And shading just under the neck. And let's get a little more definition in this shirt. And as far as definition goes, again, I'm just trying to focus that or keep that concentrated to the main portion, okay? So it might just be, this side of the sketch. Okay, and maybe there's some wires that come off, okay, and connect to my chair or whatever, but that's how I would start to pull the figure out of the product. Now, if you're ever in doubt, you can always draw through and kind of think about where this is. I actually feel like on my sketch that this part of the headset is sticking out a little bit too far, and I almost want to, cut this back and modify it just a little bit, but that's okay. Again, I'm here to have fun, and not everything I do is totally perfect, believe it or not. So here's one little trick that I do is sometimes as I'm sketching, if I make a mistake, contrast can be your friend, right? So now that I've added a little heavier line weight there and some shading there, you don't really see that line nearly as much on the far side of this sketch. And since I'm using a pencil, I can just add a little bit of shading to some parts. In fact, if I don't want this arm on the far side to add to the detail of the sketch and really just communicate that it's in the background, just shading that out can really help that kind of fade to the background a little bit more. Okay, so there's just another trick. And as I come up to the face, I'm just going to shade around and away, so in that direction, around and away from the actual head here. And what that does is it just gives a little bit of emphasis to this area instead of the rest of this. Now let's say the chair were a part of the design, the final design, then yes, I would need to come down and start to punch and push some of the line weight and shading on the actual chair. But for now, I'm just going to leave that super quick and easy and not really finish out the entire thing. But here's an example, I guess, of how I use people in sketches and why I use people in sketches. Really, they For me, it's all about using them as a prop and not as the main part of the sketch. Now, again, if you follow me for any time online, you know that it's not something I tend to do a lot of, and that's because really, frankly, I'm a little self-conscious about drawing people. It's something that I struggle with, and I'm not afraid to admit that. But it's something that I do consistently practice on my own. I may not post on Instagram or Facebook or even here on YouTube. So even right now, I'm a little nervous posting this. But one of the good things about sharing and teaching that I've found is the more I share, the better I get at something. I'm just not quite to the point where I want to share all of my people and figure sketches, but this is how I use people in my sketches. And these legs are really bugging me because they are short. So yeah, this guy has some issues, but it works. Showing context, you can add notes to your sketch, you know, if this is some important part of the sketch, or you know, some important detail on the chair, for example. Adding notes kind of helps set and establish the composition as a page. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully you've learned and picked up something. I certainly have. I've been reminded of a lot of things I need to practice, and hopefully you have too. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're about 40,000 strong, which is so awesome. Thank you so much. I hope that if I watch this video next year, that'll be 100,000 strong. Fingers crossed. So if you like what you see, tell your friends, tell your wife, your kids, subscribe. Also, you can find me on Instagram at sketchaday.com and on Twitter at Daily Sketches. I'm also at facebook.com/sketchaday, and there you're able to send me messages, interact, and see other stuff I'm posting during the week. Facebook's a little weird though, so when you do click like, be sure to click on that like button. Go down to notifications on the main facebook.com/sketchaday page and select all the options. And that way when I post or do a live stream, which I do from time to time, you'll get a notification that says, hey, Sketchaday is up to something. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time right here on Sketchaday.